I am so thrilled today to have a chance to talk to Connor Middleman. I'm going to let her introduce herself. The short story is that she is an Am I Hungry licensee. She has completed Am I Hungry mindful eating trainings and offers this to her clients. And I recently read one of her newsletters that inspired me to invite her on to talk with you about her journey with mindful eating. Connor, welcome. And will you please introduce yourself to our listeners?
Thank you. We'd be delighted to. My name is Connor Middleman. I'm from Europe originally, as you can probably tell from my accent. I moved to the States in 2012, and I was really hit by the difference in the kind of the approach people took to food and eating. I was a nutritionist already. I'm trained, certified nutritionist since 2000, in fact. And I specialize in this Mediterranean approach to eating. Well, before I moved to the States, I'd lived in France for 11 years, and people have a very joyful approach to food in France. They often shop at farmers markets, but not always. Many also shop at supermarkets, but they cook nothing fancy on weeknights, but they have a kind of ease with food. And I just really loved that whole sort of relaxed approach to eating. And then when I moved to the States, I noticed that there seemed to be a lot more stress and anxiety around food. And I even started to catch that as a nutritionist because people kept asking me, how many grams of this or how much of that should I be eating? And I kept thinking, I'm not actually sure there is a clear answer to this. And but I sort of got sucked into some of that as well. And it's taken me a while to untangle the diet culture stuff that I've absorbed over the years from really just good old-fashioned nutrition and eating, which is what I now try to help people rediscover. As a nutritionist, I see my job as simply helping people get the energy and the nutrients from the food that they need, but also that they enjoy their food. And that I keep telling my client, don't forget about vitamin P. And they go, which one's that? And I go, pleasure. And
I
they're
love
like,
it.
oh, I didn't know. And I go, yeah, it's an essential nutrient. It helps you actually enjoy your meals and feel more satisfied. And to me, that's a big part of eating. It's not just nutrients and energy or calories, but enjoyment.
Absolutely. Well said. Beautifully said. Vitamin P. I love it. Okay, well, tell us a little bit then about how you came across Am I Hungry and why you decided to add this when you already had all this expertise in Mediterranean eating and nutrition and coaching.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I wish I could remember the day I discovered it. And I think it was actually a more gradual process where I was beginning to get very frustrated as a practitioner that I was having such a hard time helping my clients because they wanted meal plans, but then they wouldn't follow them. They wanted supplements. And then ultimately, none of those really ever benefited them. And so I was really struggling with how can I help people make changes that feel organic and natural because anything I tell them to do may not actually be what they need. And so increasingly I kept saying, what does that feel like when you eat this? And maybe just experiment and explore. And then somehow I think I was doing some research around this approach to eating and came across your book. And this was long before intuitive eating had made a splash. And I was immediately drawn to the title, Eat What You Love, Love What You Eat. That's a very French sentiment. And I thought, this almost sounds too good to be true. And no, it's not. And similar, in parallel, I've also been on a mindful path myself in terms of
Mm.
sort of developing a more spiritual part of my life and I guess connecting more with myself rather than with the chatter that's around me. And so I was also beginning to dabble in mindfulness practices of my own, and suddenly mindful eating just seemed to be a natural part of that.
Right, right. Yes, I know for myself that I had become a yoga practitioner
Mm.
around the same time. And it actually was funny because I was practicing yoga, even became an instructor, and I was working on this mindful eating approach. And then one day I thought, oh, wait, these are the same thing. These are the same ideas, same concepts, same
Yeah.
principles. They just show up very differently in my life today.
Exactly. What I love about mindful eating is actually that subtle invitation to connect with yourself,
Mm.
with your essence, dare I say. And sometimes it can feel quite spiritual to guide people into listening to their bodies and um, honoring their bodies and not kind of punishing themselves with food or with exercise, but saying, what is it I need right now? And then allowing themselves to do that. It feels so generous. And as a practitioner, I love being able to say that rather than you ate too much of this or you should have exercised harder. And, which was not what I liked doing, but kind of what
Mhm.
people were expecting me to do. So this has
Yeah.
become a much more pleasant and a pleasurable way of working.
Absolutely. Well, I think about if we had to summarize, the differences between diet culture and mindful eating, the way that you've just described it, it's really diet culture is all about judgment. And, mindful eating is about curiosity and trust, learning how to listen to your body, trust that when you choose a food that maybe not, high on the, healthy quotient, that it may be very high on vitamin P and that ultimately it all balances out. As you well know from the work that you do, when people are restricting themselves from the foods that they do really enjoy, they might, feel in control for a period of time and then soon they're out of control and binging on those foods and then they're back in the same cycle again and again.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes I even invite people to have a slightly playful approach to food where they're trying new things. And then neither of us know how's this going to work. And we'll go, well, we'll just see what happens if I eat that cookie. And I've had some interesting experiences with clients who said, oh no, I can't eat cookies. If I have one, I'll eat the entire packet. And I'll say, well, just see what happens. And if even if you do, that's not the end of the world. I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens. And then they often tell me after two or three cookies, they realize, yeah, now that I'm allowing myself this, it's actually not so special. And it doesn't even necessarily taste that amazing. It's okay. I don't need that. And I similarly, personally went through a period of eating a pretty restrictive diet. And again, it was your program, Am I Hungry, with the questionnaire that came out as, yeah, you're definitely on the restrictive end. And I was
Mhm.
shocked. I thought I ate a pretty balanced diet, but I had a lot of rules I was following, and one of them was around carbs. And so when I started eating bread again, after I finally let all that restriction go, I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to eat an entire loaf of bread in one sitting. But that didn't happen. I had a slice of bread, it was delicious. And then I knew I can have the next slice later today or tomorrow. And it just all became very calm and peaceful, which was amazing. So it turned
The
me
other
grateful.
vitamin, peace, peacefulness.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. That's a great one. Yeah. Maybe
It's so
P1 and
true.
P2.
Exactly, P1, P2. Yes, I love it. I mean, I love the way you're describing it. I can see and feel your enthusiasm about it. And it's actually true that a lot of people who do the training to help their clients and patients discover that, oh, lo and behold, they had their own restriction or maybe even triggered eating challenges that they were able to resolve. And I think that makes for an even better trainer, a better facilitator, a better coach because you've been there and you can share those stories and examples when you're working with your clients as well.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely I work with a lot of people who have metabolic imbalances, elevated glucose, cholesterol, that sort of thing. And I myself have had that. And again, this led me actually to restricting carbs, restricting how many hours a day I was allowing myself to eat, because there was all this information about how that could really bring your blood sugar down and your cholesterol. In my case, it did the opposite. And so that was one of the reasons I quit. I was driving myself so crazy and thinking, and finally realizing this isn't working for me. And
Mhm.
in fact, my numbers have improved since I stopped all this stressing about food and exercise. And so
Interesting.
again, I'm just one person, and that doesn't mean that's going to apply to everyone. But I do often see people who are really panicking about their A1C, and they say, I've cut out all the carbs from my diet. And then we'll talk very gently about, how that feels. And maybe how that isn't necessary. And it might even be counterproductive because they're also missing out on nutrients and fiber
Mhm.
and things like that.
Right, right. I appreciate that. And I think there are a lot of people out there who either have a condition that they're trying to manage or trying to prevent a condition, or frankly diet culture. I used to talk about diet culture in terms of our really weight centric culture, but it's everywhere, health, nutrition, this kind of healthism that we have going on today. And so in many cases people are trying to do things that are not sustainable anyway, much less whether it even is making the difference that they think it should, and missing out on other important aspects of the reasons that we eat. So I love that, and I think it's important for people to do this work in conjunction with somebody who has that training and background in various conditions as well as in how to manage them from a mindful eating perspective. It's really
Yeah,
great. It's really
thank
great.
you. Well, I
Yeah.
do also tell people, Mediterranean doesn't just mean olive oil and fish and beans. It actually means sitting down and eating a calm meal and enjoying, noticing what you're eating and maybe noticing the flavors. And again, this is very much the mindful eating approach. But also there's a sort of an area of psychology that I discovered a few years ago called savoring, where you really pay attention to positive experiences and you sort of really enjoy them and let swish them around in your mind, as the founder of savoring calls it. And that has been shown in research to make people more relaxed and happier and just improve their quality of life. And so one of
Mm.
the things I now invite people to do is also to savor their meals, and that means eating with other people that who you enjoy being with, or just having a calm eating environment and just noticing and enjoying a meal, which many of us don't do. And often my clients will tell me, wow, my acid reflux has improved or my digestive issues have calmed down because
Right.
apparently they're chewing their food more and they're taking more time.
Well, and that has a lot of effects. I mean, for one thing, mindful eating isn't just about the act of eating, but when we apply mindfulness to the act of eating using intention and attention, as we often talk
Mhm.
about, we are much more aware of the flavors or tastes of the food, whether we're even enjoying it. I mean, there have been so many times I've taken a bite of something and thought,
Mhm.
yeah, and moved on to something else. And it also increases your awareness of your body's effects, the satiety, the side effects. Like when you were talking about a person perhaps maybe eating more cookies than they intended to. Well, your body will give you feedback about that. And I love that mindfulness is about paying attention to this constant availability of feedback, not shame, not judgment, not guilt,
Mhm.
but oh, wow, I don't really like the way that felt. Next time, maybe I will, and then making modifications that way.
Yeah, I love that judgment-free zone that you're creating there. I think that's so important because it then frees you up to invest also your attention and intention in other areas of your life. It just makes other areas richer when in fact, I kind of tell people, I know I shouldn't be saying this as a nutritionist, but we shouldn't be overthinking food. It's just food. There's a lot of other things that are more important than what you're eating.
That's
So,
absolutely right. That is absolutely right. How is that showing up in your own life? That again, that's what made me want to hop on with you and have a
yeah.
recorded conversation. We've had many other conversations, but what is it about your life now as it relates to bringing mindfulness to it and focusing on the things that are important?
Oh, what a rich question. And I'm a bit of a wordy person, so it's going to take me a while to come up with a concise answer. But I think the first step is slowing down. I've finally realized that when I rush through life, I don't always make the best decisions for myself when it comes to eating, or also moving and when I go to bed. And so calming, slowing down, which is easier now that I just turned 60. My kids have now all grown up and left home, and it's a lot easier to be, more intentional and notice and what's going on. But then often when I pause, I can connect and I ask my body, what do you want? What's going on? And then very often it'll just say, the hunger fullness scale that we teach people in the mindful eating programs, I've really internalized that. And so sometimes I'll go and check in and say, hey, you hungry yet? And my body goes, well, I'm a kind of 3.5. And I'll go, okay, I'll just make that phone call and then I'll eat. And so I just find there's greater expansiveness, greater space in my life to make decisions that feel good. And then sometimes they will not be decisions that feel good. Like yesterday, I went way too long without eating because I had a bunch of appointments. And then I ate really fast because I was so hungry and didn't feel so great. So, but again, that's positive feedback. I've also changed how I exercise. I used to force myself to go to gyms and do classes that I didn't enjoy, and often I'd injure myself, which felt almost like my body trying to help me out. And so now I just go for walks. I live in Boulder, so I've got lots of beautiful hiking nearby, and I hike quite often. And I just dance and I do fun things. And so I think as I age, I've decided I deserve to have more fun with my food, with movement, with silly things. Just now, a friend called me and said, "Hey, I've got an extra ticket for a movie at 4:30 in the afternoon." And I felt like my grown-up brain said, "No, you can't do that. It's the last part of the workday." And I went, "Come on, it's my friend, and I never see her. So we're going to go to the movies at 4:30."
I love it.
And I just think living life now rather than always delaying pleasure and gratification is something that I'm finally learning to do. But it took a long, long time. And again, I think it really is connected to this mindful approach. Yeah,
Mhm.
when I experience what's really happening in my life, it's easier for me to make decisions than when I'm just constantly thinking about what should I do. And the shoulds often lead
Right.
me the wrong way.
Right. And you made me think of something. One of the things I see a lot in people that I coach or work with is that because they have so many shoulds or so much going on in busyness. And again, I recognize that you and I are privileged to be at a stage in our lives where we don't have so much busyness going on. We both remember it, but it's past from at least that perspective. But a lot of times I wonder, I shouldn't even say wonder. I will ask, is it possible that you're using food to fill some of those holes? There's this sort of beautiful circle when we're working with mindfulness because people begin to recognize that the more mindful they live their lives, the more space they give the other things in their lives over and above just when is my next meal, how many carbs can I have? Then suddenly their life feels more vibrant. They are enjoying it more, and I think that has a positive feedback loop in terms of how they see their eating. Eating becomes fuel for living. Right.
Yeah.
Well, Connor, tell everyone how they can find you if they want to look into your work or see
Yeah.
what you have coming up. I know you have book. Talk to people a little bit more about that.
Thank you. Yeah, I wrote two books. I'm a cancer survivor long term. It's been 26 years. So I've always had a strong interest in cancer. And again, I tell people food doesn't cure cancer, it doesn't prevent it. But whether you're going through cancer treatment or even you want to strengthen your immune defenses, food can help. And so I've written two books about that. One is called Zest for Life, which I wrote while I lived in France, and it's very Mediterranean. The other I co-wrote with an oncologist, and it's more a guide for people going through treatment, how to manage some of those challenges. I also have a community that's a real passion project of mine called Savor, which I created about a year ago because I felt we were all becoming very isolated and also siloed in that, especially the health and wellness sphere has become very stressful for a lot of people. So I wanted to create a really weight and size neutral and measurement free zone where people can connect over food, movement. We have live movement classes on there. It's all mostly online, some of it's in person. And we invited you a few months ago to be interviewed, and we've had some other people on. So that's something that I hope will be supportive. I teach cooking classes there as well. And I just try to share as many practical tools as I can that are not complicated or in any way diety.
Love it.
So,
I
so
love it.
that's
Now, so where would they find you? What's your website?
so my website is modernmediterranean.com, and there is a link to the Saver community from there. And of
Now,
course,
will you
connect
be
with me.
offering any mindful eating in that community
I
or through your
will.
coaching? Tell us a little bit about that.
So in April and May, I'll be doing the general mindful eating program, the 8-week program. I already have a small group of people who've said they want to join, and I've got a few more spaces. And we will host that on the Saver platform so that they also benefit from the cooking classes and all the other things I offer there. And
Beautiful.
since I've done your bariatric training, there's one woman has had bariatric surgery. So I've done those trainings, the diabetes and bariatric training, not so much to offer those as separate classes, but just to be able to include everybody in the group program so that I can speak to their particular concerns.
I love that. That's exactly how they're designed for those who want to do it that way. So.
Mm.
Well, Connor, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your clear passion for the whole area. I really love what you've brought to the table, and I look forward to sharing this. You're very inspirational. I think we all want to have that peaceful, pleasurable relationship with food and with movement and with self-care in our lives. So thank you
Yeah.
for that.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for all your amazing work. I couldn't be doing this without you.
I appreciate that. I feel lucky. It always reminds me that when others do the training, then they reach their circle of influence and expand the work further, and just who knows who it will touch. So
Yeah, absolutely.
thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.